Hello, Fins, and welcome to another morning at the beautiful St. Louis Aquarium at Union Station. My name is Amber, as always, and today we are continuing to have breakfast, just like we have been for the past few weeks with some of our animals. I've already had pancakes and waffles today, so I am ready to go. So today we have two special friends with us today. We have Nitro, who is an African Spurred Tortoise, and Brittany, who is an animal trainer at the St. Louis Aquarium. So welcome, Brittany and
Hi,
Nitro.
guys.
Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
Brittany, can you tell us a little bit about what you do at the St. Louis Aquarium?
Yeah, of course. So I am part of the biology team. I'm an animal trainer here. So I work with our ambassador animal team. So we have a huge team of animals that range from different reptiles, our three amazing otters, Sawyer, Thatcher, and Finn, that I all know you guys have met, including Miss Coconut, as well as our star for today, Nitro. So we work closely with these animals to be able to bring them to you guys, kind of get them out here on the ambassador stage or out on the floor in the aquarium for you guys to be able to get a little bit more up close and personal with these guys to kind of gain a greater respect and kind of knowledge about these animals and why they're so important to our planet. So that's part of what I do here.
So fun. So This is Nitro?
Yes, this is Nitro.
Tell me a little bit about Nitro.
Nitro is an African Spurred Tortoise, also called sulcata tortoises. So you might have heard of sulcata tortoises before as well. So she is one of our animal ambassadors. She is about 3 to 4 years of age. She lives here at the aquarium with us, and she is one of our resident animal ambassadors that you guys get to come out and see right here on this stage, do some really cool training displays and other really awesome things. So we are super excited to have her as part of our ambassador team.
Cool. So Nitro is a she?
So that's a great question. So she is a very young tortoise. So the difference between male and female tortoises is actually really hard to tell when they are young. Once they get older and they get a little bit larger, the males will actually start to get a little concave or a little dip on their plastron, which is that bottom part of their shell, which is really important for breeding. So right now, it does seem that she has a very flat surface to her plastron, so we tend to call her a she, but she may end up proving us wrong, and she might actually be a boy. It's really hard to tell at this point.
She's moving around a lot today.
Yes.
Very fast. She must be ready for breakfast or something, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So how big is Nitro right now?
So Nitro weighs about 7 pounds right now, a little over 7 pounds.
And how big could she get?
So sulcatas are actually the 3rd largest species of tortoise in the world. They're actually the largest species found on a mainland, so on a large continent. The 2 larger species are actually island dwelling, so the Galapagos and the Aldabra tortoises both live on island chains. So she's actually the largest species that's going to be found on a continent. Sulcata tortoises or African spurred tortoises will actually get to about 100 pounds. Males can actually get almost 200 pounds.
200 pounds?
Yes.
So Nitro has some growing to do.
Yes, she does. Yeah, they grow very fast though. So they will reach their almost adult weight or maturity weight at about 15 years of age. So she's going to grow pretty rapidly till that 15-pound mark. And that's really important because really their small stages is the only time they're vulnerable to predators. Once you're a 100 to 200-pound tortoise, there's not a whole lot of predators that can crack open your shell. So they want to spend a lot of those early years growing very quickly to be able to keep themselves protected.
Okay, cool. And did you tell us how old we think Nitro is right now?
So we do think that she's about 3 to 4 years of age. Now, Nitro did come to us from a rescue facility. So when we were trying to figure out which animals would be the best to join our animal ambassador team, we did reach out to a few rescue facilities here in the area to see if there were any animals that were a good fit. And so we did find Nitro there at that rescue facility. But because she was from that facility, we don't exactly know her true age. The size of a tortoise isn't determined by the amount of years or the amount of months that they've even been alive. It's really determined by how much food they've been able to find. So their growth rate is completely dependent on that food availability. So our best guess based off of her size is that she's about 3 to 4 years of age.
Okay, 3 to 4. Moving real fast here today. Okay, I heard that some people like to keep tortoises as pets. Is that a good idea?
So sulcata tortoises, as we've already talked about, do get very large. So 100 to 200 pound tortoise is a lot of an animal to house within your home. Now these guys, what we haven't talked about yet, are actually really good burrowers. So because it's so hot in Africa, it gets up to about 120 degrees where they're from. They spend a large majority of their day burrowed in the ground, and that's to be able to keep themselves cool and to be able to conserve as much energy as possible. So she could dig a burrow up to about 10 feet deep. If you think about a 200-pound tortoise needing to get to that really cool, moist earth, that's a pretty big burrow to dig. And they dig new burrows almost every day. So as they move around to find food and then it gets hot, they're going to dig where they end up for the day rather than go back to the same burrow. So they do a lot of digging. So even if you think your backyard would be a great place to house a sulcata, you have to remember your garden's probably not going to last very long with them. So it does take a very specific space to be able to provide them. They also have very specific heat, humidity, and diet requirements as well. So they can be a lot of work.
So in order to dig all those holes, how much do they need to eat, and what do they eat to get that energy?
So sulcatas are actually complete herbivores. So she will eat only plants, but it is hard to come by a lot of the leafy greens, fruits, and vegetables every day in the desert. So a lot of her diet is going to consist of grasses, flowers, if she can find them, roots. So a majority of her food that she gets on a daily basis here at the aquarium is actually Timothy hay. That's really important for her to be able to run her digestive system, even though it doesn't have a lot of those calories. But as many times as she can find those calorie-dense fruits, vegetables, and leafy greens, she's going to go ahead and take advantage of that. So here at the aquarium, she gets a mixture of all different kinds of greens, and we kind of vary it up to kind of make her diet nice and balanced, as well as some vegetables, some sweet potato, butternut squash, carrots, and then some foods that she really enjoys are strawberries. But just like us, they're very high in sugar, so you can't have too many of them at one time, even though she would probably like that. So we do have to monitor how much fruit intake that she has, but it does have a lot of vitamins and minerals that she needs as well. So we will kind of mimic that diet with her in the aquarium. So she gets that Timothy hay, free-fed as much as she wants to keep her digestive system really healthy, but then we will also give her a salad just about every day, or every other day. So she gets about 5 times a week. She gets that nice, plentiful salad to enjoy. And then throughout the week, she gets that Timothy hay.
Oh, I love that. So has she already eaten today, or does she have any snacks that she can eat?
She has not eaten yet. So we actually have some of her salad and some of her favorite foods, her strawberries out here today that we're going to use to show you some of her training a little bit later.
Oh, cool.
As well. So I can give her a couple little snacks right now,
Yeah,
so you guys can see her start munching on her breakfast.
Let's give her
And
some
then
of her favorites.
Yeah. So
There we go. She knows. She knows it's time. Oh, fun. So do turtles have teeth?
they actually don't. They do have a very powerful bony beak. Tortoises use that bony beak, as you can see, to kind of bite into those harder parts of the plants, the stalks or the leaves. And then once she gets it into a bite-sized portion, then she's going to kind of swallow it whole. So really what she's just doing with that bony beak is she's just getting a size that's small enough for her to be able to swallow.
And I see her little tongue, too.
Yes. Yeah, the tongue is important to be able to kind of manipulate that plant, whatever it is that she's trying to consume, to the right position, so that way she can break off that piece that she needs.
This is a great breakfast. She's really loving this.
Yeah.
Cool. So food-wise, we heard she likes strawberries. She likes the Timothy hay. She likes lettuce. Do tortoises drink water?
So it's actually a common misconception, especially with the desert tortoises, that they don't need to drink water, that they get all the water that they need from their food. Now, the food that they eat, all the leaves, the fruits, the vegetables, do have a high water content in them, so they are able to break down that water from the food that they eat, which is an important adaptation being in the desert because large bodies of water are not easy to find. So it does kind of help them be able to still survive if they're not able to find water. But when they do find water, so they are actively searching for those bodies of water, when they do find water, they will take advantage of it. So depending on how long it's been since they've been able to find that body of water, they can actually drink a pretty impressive amount in one sitting, about 10 to 15% of their body weight. So if you think of a full-grown female tortoise, that's about 10 to 15 pounds of water at one time, which is pretty impressive. And then they're able to store that water in their bodies to be able to use throughout the week. So they can go up to a couple of weeks without food or water, but that's really not optimal. They do want to try to find food and water every day, so they're going to be actively roaming around their environment trying to find those things, but their bodies are adapted for the lack of availability that the desert has to be able to survive if needed without.
Awesome.
For a short amount of time.
So I know Nitro is a rescue for us, and she's an African Spurred Tortoise. So where might we find Nitro in the wild? Would we find her in Africa or those deserts like you're talking about?
Yes, so she is a desert tortoise. She is from the Sahara Desert, so the southern part of the Sahara Desert. So like we've talked about, it's a very, very warm climate. It gets about 120 degrees Fahrenheit. So that's why a lot of people assume that these guys live in very dry, arid environments. But if you remember, to be able to combat that hot sun, they actually dig those burrows down into the ground about 10 feet where it's actually pretty humid. So it's really important for their health, for their respiratory health and their skin and shell health to have that humidity. It's something that we do have to provide for her here at the aquarium. So her habitat here is both heat but also humidity controlled for that reason.
So we've talked about a few different things that we've maybe grown up to learn about turtles and tortoises, maybe that they don't need to drink a lot of water, and you told us that sometimes is not true. Another thing that people think is that tortoises and turtles are really slow. She seems to be moving kind of fast today. Are tortoises slow?
So it's actually one of the most common comments that we get when people come to the aquarium and they get to see Nitro out here doing her demonstrations, is that she actually is pretty fast is the comment. And I think what people mean is that she's faster than they expect. A lot of the cartoons that we see, you see them moving in these really kind of sluggish paces, but they can move if they need to. But that's the key word, need. So their food doesn't run away. Plants don't have legs, so they can't run to be able to chase after their food. So there's not really a need for them to spend a lot of energy moving very quickly to find their food. And remember, it's really hot in the desert, and there's not a whole lot of food readily available, so they do want to focus on conserving as much energy as possible. And then again, like we've talked about, once they're full grown, 100 to 200 pound tortoise, they don't really have to worry about running away from a predator because they have the unique ability to be able to pull their entire body into that shell, and they're pretty much protected by that really hard shell that they're able to grow. So because of that, there's not really a whole lot of need for them to learn or to spend energy running like you would think a cheetah who has to be able to hunt for their prey. So it's really important for their survival, and one of the reasons why they are able to live as long as they're capable of, because how well they're able to conserve that energy.
Okay, so very serious question. So since it's Easter this weekend, who do you think would win in a race, the tortoise or the hare?
So it definitely depends on distance. So these guys can only go about 20 feet in a minute. So if we're only doing a 20-foot race, that hare is definitely going to win. But if we're going to do a half marathon, then it's probably going to be Nitro.
So Nitro for the win, I say.
Yeah, she's definitely got that endurance, knows how to conserve that energy, and how to make it to the long haul.
Okay, so can you tell us about, do you do any training with Nitro here at the aquarium?
Yes, absolutely, and I definitely wanted to kind of demonstrate some of our training that we're doing. So kind of just to go over all the animal training that we do here at the aquarium is what we consider or call operant conditioning training, which is also known as positive reinforcement. So basically what that means is we want to pair a consequence, in this case a reward, something she finds really reinforcing, so things like her strawberries that we talked about. She also really likes her lettuce, as you've seen, with that behavior that we're trying to get her to do more often. So what we're working on with her right now is target training. Now what that means is I have an object that I'm going to present to her, and the idea is that she will follow that object around, and eventually we're going to have her place her nose to that target. Now target training is really important because it can be the gateway behavior to a lot of other behaviors that can allow us to take better care of her. So I'll kind of demonstrate for you what we're talking about. So I'm going to show her this red ball on the end of this stick, and she's going to come towards it. Good. And then I'm going to give her that nice reward or that tasty treat that she wants. So we're reinforcing that she's exhibiting that behavior. Now, the reason why target training is one of the first behaviors that we teach a lot of our animals, like I said, is it does kind of transition, or we're able to shape a lot of more difficult behaviors or even really important ones. So as we talked about, these guys do move around quite a bit to be able to find their food in their natural environment.
Look how
but
fast
here
she's
at the
going.
aquarium, Nitro gets all of her food brought to her. So she doesn't have to traverse big deserts, good, to be able to find her food. So it's important that we still make sure that her muscles stay healthy and that her heart and lungs stay healthy by providing her that exercise. So as you can see, target training, once she understands that communication, that the red dot is what she needs to kind of pay attention and follow, we're able to do some really fun exercise activities. We can go on a walk throughout the aquarium where she might be able to meet some of our other animals, things that are really fun and exciting and different, good, but are also really good for her. So definitely some really fun, important things. But the other thing that we're able to use target training that's definitely very important is to be able to take better care of her, especially for her medical behaviors. So target training can really transition into behaviors that will allow us to communicate with her through some of the medical situations that we might need to do to take better care of her. Like, let's say we want to take an x-ray, good, of her body to make sure that her lungs and her organs are healthy. Rather than having to pick her up, which when she's 100 pounds may not be possible, take her to the vet, place her on an x-ray table, we're able to communicate with her through the target training to go to that area, walk right up onto an x-ray plate, and take an x-ray, good, without any restraint or maybe anesthesia that would be required otherwise. So it's really important because then she's able to voluntarily participate in her health care, and it's a lot less stressful and easy for us to get those medical information that we would need to make sure that she's nice and healthy. So definitely some really exciting stuff.
I think she likes that red ball.
Good. Yes. Oh, she missed it. Oh, she found it.
Awesome. So what are some things that she's been able to learn so far?
So as you can see, she is doing really great with her target training.
Yes.
It is a process. So first you have to present that red target and then reward her for investigating it, which in her case, it was fairly quick because it does kind of look like a floating strawberry. So there's a possibility that she was going, good, over to it thinking that it was a strawberry. So there was already some motivation there to check it out, but we were able to give her her actual rewards or her actual strawberries when she did it to kind of really make that communication. And then we can move it further and further. So like you've seen, don't necessarily have to place it directly at her. She can recognize it from a very good distance away and still knows that she wants to go over to that target because that's where that reward is going to come from. And so we've been able to actually move it out of this space, out of this controlled corral where you would see her on the stage, and actually do some fun explorations through the aquarium as well. So we've already been able to do some of that exercise with her, so some really great things.
I heard she actually visited our North American river otters. Is that true?
It was, yes. So she definitely got to meet Sawyer, Thatcher, and Finn. She hears us talk about them all the time. So it was nice for her to be able to go and actually meet them, and they were actually very excited to see her as well. So
I would assume they were very excited to see her. They like new friends.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So do tortoises lay eggs?
They do. So they are in the class of reptiles. So that's one of the major characteristics of a reptile is that they don't give live birth, they lay eggs. So these guys will actually lay eggs. They'll lay about 15 to 30 eggs in one time. So a group of eggs that's laid is called a clutch, similar to like a litter of kittens. So in their clutch of eggs, they'll have about 15 to 30. Good.
15 to 30 is a lot.
Yes. Now, when they lay their eggs, they're actually going to dig a burrow into the ground and lay those eggs underground. Then they're able to cover those eggs back up and be able to go and find food. So it's really important for them to be able to lay their eggs and leave them so that way they're not having to stay on that nest and limit the amount of wandering around and foraging that they're able to do or looking for food. So they're able to lay those eggs in that burrow. Those eggs will stay there for about 8 months. Good. And at that point, they will hatch and come out of the ground. And when they're born, they're ready to go off on the world on their own. They don't need any maternal care from mom. Sulcatas, when they're born, are actually only about 2 inches.
Oh my gosh.
So they are quite small. They start out very, very small. So if you guys have been to the aquarium, for those of you that have already visited us, you might have met our other sulcata, Nugget. He is a little bit less than a year old. So he's a little bit bigger than 2 inches, but he is quite small. So if you haven't seen Nugget, we definitely encourage you guys to come on down to the aquarium once we're able to open back up and meet him, because he is super adorable.
So
and you
cute.
can see how quickly they grow, because he is definitely quite a bit smaller than his friend Nitro here. So it's definitely really exciting to see.
Are Nugget and Nitro related?
Good. So they are not. So Nugget came to us from another animal facility. And again, Nitro came to us from that rescue facility. So we don't exactly know where she lived before the rescue. But Nitro, we do know, was born at the animal facility that he came from.
Okay, so we've learned that Nitro is a tortoise. What is the difference between a tortoise and a turtle?
So that's a great question. So turtles and tortoises are very similar. So of all of the animals with a backbone, so of the vertebrates, they are the only ones that have shells. So that shell that she carries around with her is actually part of her body. So it grows with her as she grows. Her backbone is fused right to the inside of that shell, as well as her ribs. And she's able to, as she digests her food, she's actually able to deposit those minerals right into that shell that make up her shell. And it's made of the same stuff as our fingernails. So that really hard material, it's called keratin. So that's how they're able to have that really hard shell. So the turtles and tortoises are the only backbone animals that actually are able to have that shell. But the biggest difference between them is that most tortoises, or I'm sorry, all tortoises are going to be found on land. They are land loving, and they have much more adapted arms and legs to be able to move around really well on the ground. Good. So as you can see, her legs kind of point right out there to the ground for her to be able to walk. They also usually have a much more domed shell, which allows them to be able to get a little bit more sunlight. But for our turtles, most species of turtles are going to live in the water. So that's the biggest difference. And you can tell by the way that their bodies are shaped. Their feet are much more flipper-like. They're kind of out to the side, and they kind of have webbed feeding to be able to really swim a lot better. Their shells are also a lot flatter to be able to stay kind of hydrodynamic or be able to move through the water a lot faster, a lot easier. There are a few species of turtles, though, that do live on land. So again, if you guys have visited us here at the aquarium, you might have met Tilly, one of our other animal ambassadors. She's a Missouri three-toed box turtle. So three-toed box turtles are actually our state reptile here in Missouri. So we're super proud to have Tilly. But Tilly is a terrestrial turtle or a land turtle. So she is a little bit different than our friends, the aquatic turtles that we have here at the aquarium. She is adapted to live on the land, but she is closer related to those water turtles than she is to the land tortoises. Those are kind of the major differences.
Okay, cool. Are we going to have some breakfast maybe with some of our turtles today too?
We definitely can. We have breakfast made for them, and they are sure probably ready for it.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Let's get Nitro everything that she needs, and then we'll do some breakfast with some of the turtles. Yeah. Okay, so in cartoons, some turtles slip out of their shells, like maybe taking off a t-shirt. Is that real?
It's not. So turtles, like we talked about, their shells are part of their backbone, so it is fused to their body. So there's not a way to detach themselves and walk out of their shell like a lot of cartoons show. If you think of an animal like a hermit crab, however, they actually borrow that shell from another animal. So it's an animal that's already passed away and is no longer using that hard part of their body. So they borrow that as protection. But that crab doesn't build that shell, he just finds it. And as he grows, he needs to be able to find a bigger shell. That's not the case with turtles. Like we talked about, they're able to digest their food and be able to deposit that keratin into their shell and grow it as they grow. so they don't need to go and find a new shell or a bigger shell. And so they're able to just carry it around with them and be able to retreat into it as necessary for protection.
Okay.
Yeah.
I see she's got some of her strawberries here.
Yes,
That's her favorite,
she
huh?
does. We kind of use them as, again, those reinforcements or those dessert treats. So when she's done a really good job, we kind of use those strawberries since they are her favorite to be able to really show her that she did a really great job this morning.
She did a really great job. Definitely a really great breakfast. So if you're out there and you have any questions, make sure to write them in the comments now because we will be taking some questions after we move over and have breakfast with some of our turtles. Okay. She's finishing up here. She's doing great. Okay, Brittany, what's your favorite animal here at the aquarium? Do you have one?
So it's really hard to have a favorite.
Oh,
I mean,
I know.
all of our animals are super, super great. And like I said before, we have a very diverse team of animal ambassadors. We have everything from our sloths to parrot to all different kinds of reptiles. And they're all so amazing for different ways and different reasons. So it's really an honor to be able to work with all the different animals that we have. So it's really hard for me to say that I have a favorite.
But Nitro might be one of your best friends, right?
I definitely really enjoy working with Nitro. She is definitely a pleasure to work with.
Cool. Okay, so we're going to come over here and we're going to show you some of our turtles today. So Brittany, can you tell me where we are right now?
So this exhibit is our turtle feeding experience, which is a really awesome habitat for our guests to be able to come and enjoy. So this is our aquatic turtle, and these are all freshwater turtles. So these species of turtles can actually be found throughout the Midwest. So you can actually find a lot of these right here in Missouri. So in this habitat, we have 4 different types of turtles. We have our red-eared sliders, which are going to be the ones with red stripes where you would expect an ear to be.
Yeah, I see them.
We also have some Cumberland turtles, some yellow-bellied sliders. Now those guys are really closely related and kind of hard to tell apart, but the yellow-bellied sliders do have a large yellow stripe on the side of their face, but really it's easiest to tell if you look at their bellies or those plasterons, that underside of their shell. They're going to have a yellow belly with maybe a few black dots, but it's mostly going to be yellow, where the Cumberlands, which are their very close relatives, have those yellow bellies with lots of black dots. Now the other species of turtle in here, which is really easy to tell because they're much larger, are our false map turtles. So we've got a couple of those in here as well. So some really cool semi-aquatic turtles that you can find a lot of them in your backyard here in Missouri.
I think they're ready for breakfast.
Yes. So we can definitely feed them. So this exhibit, like I said, is a really a fun exhibit for our guests because this is one that you guys, as our guests, when you come to visit the aquarium, will actually get to feed these guys. So these guys eat a little bit differently than Nitro. So we talked about Nitro being an herbivore. So she eats only plant material. Now these guys are omnivores. So if you haven't heard of an omnivore before, omni means both. So it means that they eat both plants and meat. So these guys being mostly found in ponds, most of their meat is going to come from fish, maybe some frog eggs, tadpoles, some aquatic insects. So they do need a little bit of that protein in order to grow. But they will also eat whatever plants that they can find in the water, as well as any algae maybe. So they kind of eat a mixture of both. So what you see me doing right now, we have these little feeding sticks that we're able to use to be able to have our guests pick up a feeding stick, come over to the side of the turtle tank, and these guys are trained to come up to these sticks and grab their food from it. So definitely a fun experience for you guys when you guys get to come back to the aquarium, or maybe if you've already been here, you know that this area is really fun.
So our guests can feed turtles?
Yep, so exactly what I'm doing right now. So we'll provide you with this little feeding stick with whatever portion of their diet that they're eating. So these guys, just like with us, they do have favorites, so parts of their diets that they prefer more than others. And one of their favorite parts of their diet is that protein or that meat. But just like us, it's really important that they still eat their vegetables. So we do try to make sure that they eat their vegetables before they get their meat, kind of as a dessert or a reward for them doing a great job of eating those fruits, the leafy greens and vegetables that they need to stay healthy. So depending on the time of day, you'll get to see different portions of their diet fed out to them.
So it looks like we have some carrots here, we have some lettuce.
We've got some sweet potato,
Oh.
and then we have some little glass minnows, so some little
Oh.
fish that they really enjoy to eat.
And how many times a day do they eat?
So they get continuously fed throughout the day. So we divide their diet up into small portions so that way guests are able to feed no matter what time they come to the aquarium, which is actually really natural for them as well. So in their natural environment, they're going to be constantly foraging or finding food, searching for food throughout the day and eating whenever they find food that's available. So they don't really have meal times like you and I do. They kind of snack throughout the day, which is really good because it helps their metabolism stay nice and healthy, so that way they're able to continue to move around and find food and have that energy to do so.
Well, I used to have meal times, but now I just snack all the time with quarantine, so.
Right, I know. I'm almost out of all my quarantine snacks, and I'm trying to be really good at not buying anymore.
So we could say that we're kind of like these turtles right now, just snacking all day.
Yeah. Although I wish I had a nice water exhibit to hang out with, because as it starts to warm up in Missouri, I'm going to miss the water.
It was hot yesterday.
Yes.
Yes, this looks like a great habitat that I could definitely hang out in all day.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've met Nitro, the tortoise. We've met our turtles in here. Are there other animals that we have at the St. Louis Aquarium?
So we have lots of different animals, especially if we're
Turtles.
talking about, turtles
Yes.
and tortoises. So we talked about our two tortoises. So we have Nitro and Nugget, our two sulcatas. And then we also have all of these wonderful semi-aquatic turtles. But then we have some other turtles that live in some of our other habitats. So you guys might have seen our mata. We also have a pig-nosed turtle, and those are fully aquatic. So they spend most of their time in the water. So they actually live downstairs in our freshwater exhibits, in our Missouri Confluence, and in our River Monsters tank. So you guys can definitely check out those really cool animals. And we also have our three-toed box turtles as our animal ambassadors. So you guys might have seen those guys when you guys come to see the aquarium out on the ambassador stage. So we do have some different turtles and tortoises here at the aquarium.
Okay. So would the St. Louis Aquarium ever get a sea turtle?
So we have actually, our curator has been visiting a few different facilities to try to see if there is a animal that would be a good fit for us here at the aquarium. So there's lots of different sea turtle rescue facilities that take in sea turtles that were either injured out in the wild or got really sick and for some reason are not releasable back into the wild. So either that injury is going to keep them from being able to find food or to be able to stay healthy in the wild. So at that point, they would need a forever home at a facility like the St. Louis Aquarium. So that way they're able to still get the things that they need with whatever injury or illness that they have. So our curator has been actually visiting a few different facilities and is in the works of hopefully getting the permitting, which is actually a really long process because they are protected. There's 7 different species of sea turtles and they're all endangered, so there is a lot of permitting since they are federally protected to be able to acquire those animals. So we are in the process of working on that. So hopefully in the near future we might have some really cool sea turtles join our family here at the aquarium.
Oh my gosh, Finns, you heard it here first. We might be getting a sea turtle soon. Yay, that's so exciting. Thank you for sharing that with us, Brittany.
Absolutely.
Okay, are you ready to take some questions from our viewers?
Absolutely.
Okay, let's see what we got here. So, Virginia wants to know, how long do these turtles live?
So these turtles can live quite a long time. So they can live about an average of 30 years or so. It's really going to depend on the food availability as well as predators. So that average lifespan is brought down a little bit by a lot of those hatchlings that don't survive the first year because they're either picked off by a predator or they weren't able to find enough food in that first year. but also other environmental factors as well. So because these guys live in our waterways, like our ponds, they're actually pretty susceptible to things like water pollution. So different chemicals that leach out into the water, as well as any trash or debris, can really confuse them. They might think that it's food, they might get entangled in it. So they do have some environmental issues to deal with as well. So it's really important for us at home to kind of be mindful of that when we're living our daily lives, to see what we can do to try to make it safer for all of our animals on our planet, but a lot of our water animals. So things like recycling can go a really long way because it keeps those plastic debris out of our waterways. And we've all talked about, I'm sure we've heard plastic straws. Can actually cause a lot of damage for some of our larger turtles. So things like sea turtles, they can actually get those lodged into their nasal cavities and things like that. So here at the aquarium, we actually use our paper straws. So that's a really good thing that you guys can transition, is either have one reusable straw that you're able to use multiple times, or if you need a disposable option, paper straws are the way to go because they're able to biodegrade and be a lot safer for our animals. So when you come to the aquarium to feed, you're actually going to be feeding with these paper straws, so that way we can be able to dispose of them safely and our wildlife isn't going to be at harm.
That's great.
Yeah.
St. Louis Union Station, for those of you that don't know, actually went to all paper straws just recently. So our restaurants, the train shed, and the soda fountain use all paper straws as well, which is a really good initiative that we do here. So cool. Okay, another question from Kyla. She's 10 from Lisbon, Iowa. She wants to know, in addition to pollution, like you've been talking about, what are some other predators for turtles? Are there any?
So for our aquatic turtles, so these guys here, since they do live in ponds, some slow-moving rivers, they are pretty susceptible to a lot of our large carnivores or meat eaters that we have here in the Midwest, even in otters. So otters have really strong bite forces, so they would even be able to crack open these guys' shell. So if they were able to get their little paws on a turtle, it would make a good snack for them. But any of those large carnivores would be able to. So that's another reason why they spend a lot of their time in the water. These guys do need to be able to get sunlight in order to properly digest their food and to keep their shells really healthy. But a lot of times they don't want to leave the water because it does make them more vulnerable to those land predators. So when they do sun, they might come to the edge of the pond, but a lot of times they're going to float on like logs and rocks and things that are in the middle of the water to be able to kind of stay in that safe space, because they're a lot better swimming around on the ground or in the water than they are moving around on the ground. So that's kind of their safety space that they're going to retreat to if they do feel like they're at danger for a predator.
Is this why we have lights over here for them?
Absolutely. So because they need that sunlight to be able to digest their food and to keep their shells really healthy, here at the aquarium we're able to provide that for them with our specialized lights. So those lights actually emit the same UV radiation that the sun does. So it still is able to fuel those different pathways in their bodies or their different metabolism and things like that to be able to keep them nice and healthy and keep those shells nice and healthy here at the aquarium.
Guys, I might just hang out with the turtles today and just sun myself, I guess.
Yes.
Okay, another question from Reese and Shiloh. They want to know, are there any foods that turtles can't eat?
So that's a great question. So it definitely depends on the type of turtle. So we have a few turtles that are mostly carnivorous, meaning they eat mostly meat. So a lot of their diet is going to come from protein. And then we have some turtles that are completely herbivorous or herbivores, meaning they eat only plants. So really it depends on the species of turtle. So especially for you guys that might have turtles as pets or might be thinking about a turtle as a pet, it's really important that you do a lot of research in these species or the type of turtle that you're wanting to have, so you know that you have the right diet for them.
Okay, so I have a question. How do turtles sleep?
So that's a really great question as well. So these guys, like I said, spend a lot of their time in the water. So they will actually be able to hold their breath a pretty impressive amount of time. So they will do kind of some small restings down at the bottom where it's nice and safe. So they'll go down there, they'll hold their breath, and they'll rest there at the bottom, and then they'll come back up to breathe air because they do need to breathe air. They can't breathe water. So they'll do a lot of that throughout the day, but they can also haul themselves out on those floating logs or maybe a big rock in the middle of the pond like we talked about and actually fully rest as well. So they will usually typically do that at night and then be able to be active to be able to find food during the day, but they'll kind of do those little naps throughout the day.
So Theron from Cedar Rapids, Iowa wanted to know how long they can sleep. So you think maybe they're just taking naps all the time?
Yeah, they take some kind of short naps or rest cycles throughout the day, and it really depends. So they want to spend a lot of that daylight foraging or looking around for their food, but they do want to conserve energy as well, especially if they're not finding food. So they'll kind of rest throughout the day and kind of take those naps or breaks, and then at night they will spend a majority of the night mostly resting.
Okay, same.
Yeah.
Okay, so Trisha wanted to know if Nitro was a Pokemon. No, we do not have Blastoise here at the aquarium. So no Pokemons at the aquarium today, Trisha. Thanks for your question. Let's see. Jack says that turtles are his favorite animals. Yes, for sure. So I know you said tortoises were terrestrial animals and land animals, but can they swim?
So tortoises cannot swim like our friends that we're watching here at this exhibit. So they don't have the same flipper-like feet that these guys have that allow them to be really good swimmers. And they're a lot heavier, so it's a lot harder to move around in the water. But they will go to the water and they will what we call wallow to be able to keep cool and to be able to get hydration. So when they can find those bodies of water, and especially for those desert tortoises, again, it's not very often, but when they can find it, they will actually spend a little bit of time just kind of laying in the shallow parts of the water. But unfortunately, they can't really swim like our friends here at this exhibit.
Okay, so final question here from Briley. She's 6 from St. Charles. She wants to know how long can they stay underwater?
So typically they will only stay underwater for about 5 minutes or so, but when they are doing their resting, they can hold their breath at a pretty impressive amount of time. It can be upwards of close to 30 minutes.
30 minutes underwater?
Yes.
Wow, that's I think that's longer than the otters too.
Yes.
Okay. Cool. Well, thank you for joining us today,
absolutely.
Brittany. I feel like I learned a lot, as always. I learned that they like to take a lot of naps. They like to do a lot of snacks throughout the day. They like to lay in the sun, and I feel like
Yes.
my spirit animal might be a turtle.
I agree with that one, especially the sunning and the swimming.
Okay. Well, thank you for joining us today. So as always, we will be posting a follow-up activity and quiz after we let you go here. So you'll be able to kind of do some educational things throughout the day with us. And then tomorrow, join us again at 10 a.m. for another live quarantine stream of our habitats. Those have been really fun to watch. We've got to see the jellyfish. We've got to see the otters. I know you guys have been asking about our leafy sea dragons, so maybe we'll do that again tomorrow. I don't know. We'll see. Okay, so thank you for joining us today. Hope you learned a lot, and we will see you tomorrow and then next week for more fun things too.
Hi, guys.
Bye.